Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining the Re-Accelerate burst of StartupCincy Week. If you've been on all day, I apologize that you're hearing from me again. But for those of you who haven't, my name is Kelly Bonnell, and I am the Executive Director for Main Street Ventures. We are proud and honored to be one of the sponsors for this week's Startup Week. And at Main Street Ventures, we're working to become the community-funded initiative that makes entrepreneurship possible for everyone in Cincinnati by supporting entrepreneurs with what they need when they need it: capital, connections, and education. We look to support all good ideas and founders, but with a particular focus on women and minority entrepreneurs who have been historically underrepresented in the startup community. So I am thrilled and also honored to be here to present our next presentation. They are two of my favorite people and mentors in my life, honestly. We today are very fortunate to have Todd Uterstadt and Amy Katz, who are going to lead us through a great session. But before they get started, I'm going to give a little bit of a bio and background on them. So Todd is the host of the podcast From Founder to CEO, one of the top 1% most popular shows out of 2.6 million podcasts globally. He has interviewed over 400 successful founders from top companies like Netflix, Zoom, Dunkin' Donuts, Sonic Drive-In, MailChimp, Basecamp, Calendly, Unbound Merino, FreshBooks, Hintwater, and Beachbody, and that's to name a few. He has coached over 2,000 founders, CEOs, and leaders across the world after serving as a decorated U.S. Army intelligence officer. Todd is co-owner of Baker & DeBall, an executive coaching firm headquartered in Cincinnati, Ohio. And along with him is the co-founder of Baker & DeBall, Amy Katz. Amy has consulted with a wide range of startups, family businesses, entrepreneurial ventures within large organizations. As a social psychologist, she uses systems thinking as the lens for understanding the intersection of relationships, organizational design, and adapting to change and growth. Amy, as I said, is co-owner of Baker & DeBall, an executive coaching firm headquartered here in Cincinnati, which Cincinnati is so lucky to have the two of them. So about this session, conventional wisdom is that startups fail for a list of reasons that include cash crunches, flaws in the business model, market misfires, competition, and challenge of litigation rounding out the top 5. No one talks about one of the biggest reasons, co-founder conflict. Ignore the 3 complications of co-founder conflict and you'll put your partnership and your business at risk. Learn what they are, why they matter, and how to make them work for you. So with that, I am thrilled to turn it over to Todd and Amy to kick off our afternoon of content.
Thanks so much, Kelly. We're going to start by telling you what this presentation is not about. It's not about you and your co-founder developing your vision for the company. It's not about the different demographics that you may represent. It's not about the different life stages you may be in and how that affects the way you work together. And it's also not about just the daily irritations that you may find in working with a co-founder. What we are going to talk about are 3 facets of conflict, 3 complications that you may not be thinking about when you're working with your co-founder. They can heighten the conflict unless you can resolve them. We want to help you use these concepts to your advantage. Today, we're going to tell you a story about how these 3 complications played out in the relationship between co-founders and growth in their tech startup. So, I'm going to let Todd talk with you now a bit about the company whose story we're going to be telling you today. Todd?
Thanks, Amy. Yeah, and this story is an amalgamation of many of the startups and founders that we've been fortunate to work with for quite some time. And we're talking about this because a fairly large number of startups fail because of co-founder conflict. And if you've ever read The Founder's Dilemma and Noah Wasserman's research on that, it's really compelling. In this particular story, we want to set up a scene that is very common and that we hear frequently. The name of this company is Lead Genie. I came up with that name. I like that. It's not protected yet, so if you want to grab that name.
Keep going, Todd.
It's a software as a service company, a marketing technology company, or MarTech, of course. They're in their 2nd year of business, And they're bootstrapped, no investment capital yet. Their monthly recurring revenue is about $60K a month, and they have 7 full-time team members. Now, that does not include Christy and Luke, who are the 2 co-founders. They have a little bit of traction, but they still have a long way to go for profitability. Okay, so Christy, let's talk about Christy first of all. So Christy is the co-founder and CEO, and prior to co-founding, she worked at a tech startup where she was in a tech role. And she focuses right now in Lead Genie on business development, account management, customer service, human resources, and of course, fundraising. She has 50% ownership in Lead Genie. She's smart, she's expressive, she's focused, she's determined to succeed, and she's a fairly no-nonsense person, personality-wise. And she's friends with Luke from the previous company, but they're not lovers. We just want to make sure you know that. And Christy really appreciates Luke's creative problem-solving approach and his technical savvy. Now, Luke is the co-founder and CTO, and prior to co-founding Lead Genie, he was with Christy at another company in a tech role, and he focuses on product development, quality control, managing the developers, and responding to customer ticket requests at this point in time. As you might imagine, that's a typical starting responsibilities for a CTO. He also has, of course, 50% ownership in Lead Genie. He is too smart, expressive, focused, and determined, and has a fun and creative and humorous personality. And of course, he's friends with Christy. And again, they're not lovers. And Luke really appreciates Christy's can-do, positive attitude and her ability to get things done. So, when Christy and Luke founded the company, they were determined to be great partners. They discussed this. They wanted to be a trusting relationship, and they wanted to respect each other's talents, make decisions together, very key, and to confront issues when they need attention. And that brings us to these 3 complications, Amy, right, that we have kind of discovered along the way that permeate and I guess oftentimes amplify conflict that may be residing beneath the surface.
Absolutely. And I'm sure the suspense is killing you. Here are the 3 concepts that we want you to think about. And here are some definitions. The first is roles, and you may have heard this concept of role, but we'd like you to think about it in a more intentional way. Roles are job descriptions. They define your responsibilities, the people and the processes that you interact with, and the outcomes and deliverables that mark successful performance. The second concept, which many of you I'm sure have heard of, is that of boundaries. People talk a lot about boundaries these days. Boundaries are limits. In startups, they define which customers, vendors, and funders to say yes to or no to, the behaviors that the business allows and doesn't allow, and this is another complication, the personal beliefs and values employees hold about what belongs at work and what doesn't. The third concept is power. Power is your ability to exert influence, whether through a formal position that you hold, some information that you possess that's important, technical or product savvy and knowledge, personal connections within or outside the startup, and finally, personal charisma. So I want to go a little bit now in depth on roles. Back to our story. Christy and Luke are tired. They work over 60 hours a week and sometimes more. They have 2 very large customers that dominate their really 60K MRR is largely the result of these customers. Now, one of the 2 customers would like a fairly time-consuming change to the Lead Genie technology that will help their company with something specific to their needs.
That never happens, right,
Never. Both Christy and Luke are excited that the customer is getting so much value out of Lead Genie software, but they each have some concerns. Christy has concerns about the current and long-term impact of this request on the entire business. First of all, the request surprised her. She is the account manager, and it's not on the product map that she and Luke developed together. Second, it's likely to consume a lot of the time that the developers need in order to come up with a change. And third, she's concerned about how much this will cost. Luke has concerns too. He's concerned primarily about the importance of satisfying this customer. The customer represents 20K of the monthly recurring revenue. He does not want the customer to leave Lead Genie and go to another competitor. He doesn't think it's going to take as much time and money or developer resources to make the changes, test the changes, ship the changes, and train the customer. Plus, he thinks other large companies might really like this change too, and he is really ready to get started. So, no surprise, a conflict emerges. Both Christy and Luke feel they've made some valuable points, but they're stuck. Behind closed doors, they've been engaging in some uncomfortable debates about their decision. Christy is emphasizing that as CEO and account manager for this customer, she has to look at all aspects of the business and of this request. Luke makes the case that he has the up-to-date knowledge of the software, and he's also hopeful that working on this will lead to other creative opportunities. After several conversations, which really go nowhere, Luke tells Christy that he's going to move forward. And when she objects, he storms out of the room. And Christy is stunned by this behavior. So just again to go back to the concept of role, roles are job descriptions, define responsibilities, the people and processes you interact with, and the outcomes and deliverables that mark successful performance. So Todd.
Yeah, so the story gets better, right?
Or worse.
Or worse, as you look at it. This often leads to complication number 2. Many of you may be asking yourselves, have I been experiencing this role complication? And it's going to get a little bit deeper now. So Luke tells the customer, yes, we're going to make the change. And Luke gets to work with the developers, of course, because they want to get started immediately. And one of the developers is named Sam. And Sam is a key player in this change because he has a lot of knowledge about the platform Lead Genie. Now, many of you say to yourself, oh yeah, one of our developers is the most knowledgeable on our team about our software. That happens frequently. Well, the customer also likes Sam because he's very knowledgeable and responsive. And historically, Sam sometimes falls through on execution and follow through. So, unfortunately, things are not going well. And Sam is not performing. Now, Luke is not very skilled in handling this type of poor performance issue about execution and follow through. As a matter of fact, he really doesn't like it at all. Remember, Luke is kind of more the fun-loving of the co-founders, and it's a little bit uncomfortable for him to kind of deal with this issue. So Luke is not addressing the issue. Looking over at Luke is not addressing the issue. You have heard about this before, right?
No, never.
Never, right? And so what happens? Well, the team members go to Christy without telling Luke and start complaining to her and pleading with her, please do something about this because Sam is just not following through. So, without telling Luke, Christy talks with Sam about the issue. Well, how do you all think Luke responded to that, right? Think about that for a moment. Well, Luke gets upset. Who does he get upset at first? His developers. He gets upset at them because they went to Christy and not him. But then he's upset with Christy for talking with Sam, and he's kind of embarrassed now by what's happening because things are getting out of control because he knows he's not the best at this type of issue. So this leads to complication number 2. So Christy and Luke engaged in a more uncomfortable debate about the situation, and now the tensions are escalating even more. Luke feels like Christy talking with Sam before she spoke with Luke is out of line, that he's crossed a boundary, that she's crossed a boundary. Luke reminds Christy that as co-founders, they agreed to discuss significant team issues with each other before talking with a teammate about the issue. Now, Christy's saying to herself, well, Luke, she had no choice to act because Luke was not initiating the conversation with Sam, and things were getting out of control. And as Amy mentioned, she's the account manager. And so she's kind of a no-nonsense person. And she says, well, we've got to take care of something here now. But Luke tells Christy that she did not even give him a chance because she went directly to Sam about the issue. So, Amy, this happens a lot, right?
All the time.
All the time. I mean, we hear about it all the time. And what we have here is a complication of boundary issues as it relates to internal team issues between Christy and Luke, but also Luke and his developers, Christy and the developers. So those boundary issues span and kind of expand beyond the co-founder issues and begin to have an impact on the team itself. And it's corrosive because the customer is expecting something to happen. The developers would like things to get a little bit less heated because they can see the tension and the escalation of the animosity between Christy and Luke. And it starts getting out of hand. And it leads often and frequently to the third complication, because boundaries are limits, as Amy pointed to. And when you start going beyond the limits of what you agreed to, then you start focusing on power.
So, the saga continues. Complication story number 3. All right. One day, Lead Genie team members watch with alarm as Christy and Luke engage in a heated argument about the impact of the customer's demands during a staff meeting. Sam is quiet. The other team members start wondering if they had done the right thing by going to Christy. Was Sam the problem? Were Christy and Luke not getting along anyway? Did they cause the argument by going to Christy? At the same time, sadly, the customer has become increasingly annoyed at Sam and is starting to talk with Christy about going to a competitor if she doesn't deal with him, even though Sam is the only one with the knowledge to have the impact on the situation. And Sam knows it. Back behind closed doors once again, Christy and Luke start arguing about whether or not Sam should be reassigned or fired. The argument starts to shift dramatically about who has the power to reassign or even fire a team member. Since Christy and Luke are 50-50 owners.
One of the challenges of 50-50 ownership right now.
Very challenging, I think. They say some things about each other's motivations, and here we go into the quagmire of personality. Here they were friends, now they're questioning each other's motivations, the amount of time they work, comparing notes about each other's time, their personalities, and their skills. Comments that are hard to take back. So unsurprisingly, Christy and Luke's relationship deteriorates, and trust, once strong, is now pretty low. They really don't know how to reset their relationship and deal with the issue of Sam and the customer. 2 days later, the customer fires Lead Genie, and later that day, Sam tells them that he has another job at a SaaS company in town and starts on Monday.
No 2-week notice?
No.
Shocking.
Yes. So Lead Genie is now down to 40K MRR and just 6 developers. So just to go back to our definition of power, it's the ability to exert influence. And it doesn't matter. You can have power when you're not in a formal position, and you can have no power when you are. Information, power can come from technical or product knowledge, personal connections, or charisma. I will say, Luke is pretty charismatic.
He is.
I just thought I'd say that.
Yes. He's likable.
He is. And Christy can be, that no-nonsense side.
Yep, but she's likable too.
Yeah. But I like Luke. So, let's go back now to a summary. Roles, boundaries, power. The thing we like about these concepts is that they allow a conversation which doesn't have to get too personal. It's not about the personality. It's not about someone's age or situation in life. It's really about the essential components of what makes an organization work. And sometimes, I don't know, Todd, I have found that's a step that gets completely skipped in the startup process. So,
well, and one of the reasons why it gets skipped, Amy, I think we see all the time is that when you're moving so fast, this is a team of 9 people, including Christy and Luke. And they're wearing many hats. We were just talking about that before, about small teams that people wear many hats. And so we sometimes forget that we have to renew the relationship. You talked about a few moments ago in the story that they don't know how to reset the relationship. And I think what happens is it escalates down quickly because, as you mentioned, they were saying things that they are hard to take back. And no matter what you say, if you say you're sorry or I didn't mean that, it's a wound that needs to be healed, that cannot be just fixed with words sometimes. However, we wouldn't be here talking about this subject if we didn't say, well, there is something you can do. And so we wanted to share with you some ideas about each of the 3 complications that you might want to screenshot with your phone and save for those situations where you feel like, tensions are rising, things are getting out of hand. Okay, what can I do in this situation that might have an opportunity to heal the relationship, bring people back together, hopefully influence the ability of not losing any other customers since, they had 2 customers that were providing the largest amount of their MRR. So the first one for roles. Amy, one of the things that you and I talk a lot about is many founders and leaders will ask us, well, what do I need to say in this situation? Like, what can I say in this situation that will fix it, right? And we understand the idea that you need sometimes a little bit of script, but oftentimes it's more important to have a prompt. And so the prompt that we want to share with you around roles are these 4 prompts. And if you find yourself at the beginning stages of, getting conflict and the role complication is beginning to drag both of you down, you might stop and you might say, okay, I'm a little confused. I thought I was responsible for XYZ. So that's a clarity question. Like, I want to make sure that I'm aligned with what we initially spoke about. Frequently, a clarity question is not something that's provocative. It could be, but frequently it's not. Then also, when you express your own emotion, when you say, I'm feeling frustrated, okay, that's an expression of your emotion. No one can argue with your emotions. You're just making an observation about your emotions. And if you said something like, well, I kind of expected you to manage that project, that problem, or in this case, that person, Sam, then you're just expressing an emotion of which the other person can respond to or not respond to. Or you might consider saying, I'm concerned, right? You keep forgetting, overstepping, or ignoring X, Y, Z. Or you might want to throw in there, my observation is that you seem to be forgetting, overstepping, or ignoring X, Y, Z. And for the positive perspective, remember, you may approach it from a positive perspective. You may say, I really appreciate the way that you are handling this issue, that we developed this policy, or the way you research the subject, or where you're able to get that, $50 million in investment, like we found out from a company in Cincinnati this past week, and start it from that perspective, because that reinforces that they're doing something good, and you're not there just to criticize about potentially the role complication that may be eating away at your relationship.
Right.
So screenshot that. Amy, boundaries. How can we give them some thoughts around boundaries? How do we give them some prompts?
Here are a few. So, I'm confused. You said you wanted time off, ... An example being, but you're here all the time. Or, I didn't expect you to take 3 months. Boundaries, that this is a situation that the person has set. Because remember, we all set boundaries. They may be in our head, but they come out. They play out in the workplace. Another one is, I'm frustrated. I thought we weren't going to work with companies that ... And there's a whole list of companies your startup may say, oh, I'm not getting near them.
I love that one. Because, think about the changes and the pivots that so many founders go through. That's an inevitable situation to occur. And so that prompt, I think, is often helpful in those situations with a pivot.
Yeah. And often it can reflect a change in something that violates their values. Mm-hmm. And sometimes values can be a boundary that you put in place.
Absolutely.
A second one can be, another one, I'm concerned. I'm wondering if employees are sharing confidential information about our product or service.
That never happens.
I think that's a big one. And finally, again, going to the fact that somebody may be great at setting boundaries, and you, as a startup founder and leader, may really want to say how much you appreciate that they are able to set limits, that they're able to say yes or no. Okay, on to power.
Yeah, so as we said, sometimes these things escalate and they start heading toward power complications. And they don't have to, because you can use these prompts, screenshot this slide too, to refresh yourself of what you can do to help reset the conversation, rekindle the relationship, and really kind of take a couple steps back and think through how you might be able to diffuse the conflict. So for example, you might say, well, I'm a little confused, right? You made that decision and went ahead with it without letting me know. So the confusion is, why did you do that? Taking the time to be able to ask the why question by first expressing that you're confused does help diffuse things, because if you're confused, you're confused. Who's going to argue about whether or not you're confused? Although, if you say that with a little bit of snidiness in your voice, that's not helpful. That's not helpful at all. But you also might say, hey, I'm frustrated. You seem to be maybe dominating this conversation, or even the opposite of that, withdrawing from the conversation. And I'm a little frustrated. Can we talk a little bit more about that? Again, you might want to make the observation and say, it seems like that you're doing that, because you don't want to accuse anyone of anything, because that sometimes could heighten the power complication. Or you might say, I'm concerned. Why are you doing this? Why is it taking time to, why is it not going along the way we anticipated, right? It's a concerned expression that again gets back to clarity. But then again, you also might say, well, we really appreciate the way you're doing this, right? We may appreciate that you gave feedback, or that you wowed the client in that client meeting, or that, that you had a good meeting. I mean, sometimes just having a good meeting is a big deal. That helps to be able to reset the power dynamic when that starts escalating conflict. But there's good news, right, Amy?
There is good news. There is a happy ending to this story. Christy took charge of the situation. Ultimately, she felt that was her role. She asked Luke to spend a day with her at a retreat center. During that day, they renewed their friendship and their history together. They talked about the fun they had as they started Lead Genie, and then they focused on their specific roles, how Sam got so much power, and what boundaries they needed to set for the business, their employees, and for themselves. Todd?
Yeah, and they both agreed that they had a lot to learn, not only about managing the business, but about each other and the other team members. And the good news is that when they returned to work, the employees were relieved because Christy and Luke once again became the great dynamic duo that they all experienced in the beginning, and that they also had fun, and the tension was reduced. Because Lead Genie also found another Sam, and Christy convinced the customer to return, because she's really good at that account management, and Luke managed the developers to deliver on that change for their customer. And so it worked out, and they were able to recover not just the business, but their relationship, because from their relationship in the early stages of a startup flows great success. The motivational energy that team members see from their founders and co-founders sets the energy level, sets the attitude, and also the trajectory of the business. Would you agree, Amy?
I would agree.
Yes. So we are delighted to be able to share these thoughts and ideas with you and this story about Luke and Christy. Remember, Luke and Christy and Lead Genie is an amalgamation of many founders that we work with. If you're experiencing a little bit of issues and tension around co-founder conflict, send us a message. We're happy to help. You can find us at FromFounderToCEO.com. We've got a podcast there you can listen to, over 400 episodes, and we would love to help you out if you need some help to be able to navigate co-founder conflict so you can avoid the 3 complications of co-founder conflict. Yeah. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Amy and Todd. That was an amazing session. Stick around because we've got great content coming up. We're going to have the Cincinnati Accelerator Showcase. But first, we want to toss it over to our sponsors at Sam Adams, who have an amazing message about brewing the American dream. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
My first experience when I come into work is usually quiche, bread, and molasses cookies that I smell first thing in the morning. When I come inside, everything is just fresh out of the oven. Pans are all hot. I usually burn myself pulling it out the pans and looking at everything, making sure it all looks okay, looks the way it should. I'm Dinah Grossman. I'm the owner of Spinning J Bakery and Soda Fountain in Humboldt Park in Chicago, and I'm brewing the American Dream with Sam Adams. I like the feeling of sort of an old school diner. So we are open all day long and we make everything from scratch. All of the breads that we use in our sandwiches, the soups, the sauces. The heart of it is the soda fountain where we make our own sodas, we make soda syrups, we make the bitters from scratch, we make everything here. And then we have gelato and ice cream and we make milkshakes and malts. Spinning J is short for Spinning Jenny, which is a nickname for the flying maple seeds that a lot of people call helicopters or whirligigs. The necklace that I have belonged to my grandmother Ethel, and it's a silver Spinning Jenny. She grew up going to a soda fountain called Sanger Drug, which is where our bar came from. And it just seemed like fate that we found this piece of history that she had grown up with. Because this is her soda fountain and her bar, it's a way of naming it after her. Brewing the American Dream has been really valuable. We've gotten advice on things that I had no experience doing before. I knew how to bake, but I didn't know anything about hiring practices and employee manuals. They've just been a huge help in just being a resource whenever we need advice or some questions answered. Even though it seems impossible in the beginning, it's going to be worth it in the end. I'm Dinah Grossman. I'm the owner of Spinning Jay Bakery and Soda Fountain in Chicago's Humboldt Park. We make sandwiches, sodas, and the best apple pie in town.
Hi guys, welcome back. My name is Brian During and I am the Startup Success Manager here at Centrifuge. And while I'm relatively new to Centrifuge as an employee, I am far from a stranger to the Cincinnati ecosystem. So in my past life, I served as the co-founder and CEO along with my wife Laura of StreamSpot. And it was an idea that started with a single church here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and ended in a successful exit when we have customers in all 50 states and 11 countries. And my job here at Centrifuge, honestly, it's the best job on the planet. So I get to work with startups all day long and talk about the scars that we obtained over that 10-year journey in the hopes that they don't walk into the same landmines that we did. And you know, it's great. We have all these resources here at Centrifuge to offer up. But one thing that's always in my tool chest is recommending that they apply for an accelerator, mainly the local accelerators here in town. And it's for a lot of reasons. I mean, if I think back to my own journey and prior to when we were accepted to Ocean Accelerator's inaugural class in 2014, all of our financials were like Excel. Our pitch deck had misspellings in it. You know, just block and tackle business acumen that we were lacking. And I have to credit that not only the ecosystem and the accelerators, it really changed that trajectory because at the time we were in like 3 states, had 75 customers. And less than a year later, we're in all 50 states and 11 countries. So, you know, I think it's great that we focus on the word accelerate because personally, and hopefully I'm living proof here as I stand on the stage, it's exactly what it did for me and for StreamSpot. I'm joined here today by 7 organizations, and the common theme between Centrifuge and these 7 organizations is we are all here to help startups win. We're going to learn a lot about each of these organizations one by one, and I'm excited to dive into that. We're going to tee it up first with Nancy Eichholz, who's the president and CEO of Aviatra Accelerators. So with that, I'm going to have a seat here, and we're going to get into this. So, Nancy, first and foremost, tell me how to pronounce it appropriately because I didn't.
Aviatra Accelerators. Think aviator, but the girl version.
Fantastic. I'm definitely going to mess that up at least 5 more times.
Okay. You know, with a last name like Eichholz, I'm used to it.
Excellent. So give us a little bit of an overview about Aviatra and the program itself, and then we'll dive into the details.
Sure. So we exist to empower female entrepreneurs, and we help female founders at every stage of their business life cycle, from idea to exit, everything in between. And what's really unique about what we do is that we are completely industry agnostic. We see everything from tech to manufacturing to one-person consulting businesses, and you name it. And every time that we have a new cohort, I think I've heard all the ideas, seen every industry, and every time there's a new cohort, there's brand new ideas and new industries that are popping up. So, that's what we do.
Fantastic. And you mentioned, you know, you're not in a specific segment like some cater to fintechs or, you know, that'd be a software SaaS base. It's nice that you kind of cast that wide net. So what does a cohort typically look like? You know, is it mainly around the SaaS or, you know, what is the makeup? How many are traditionally in it?
It's really completely mixed. And what I like to say is that if you are a female founder, you need to have a relationship with Aviatra, no matter what other accelerators that you are participating in, no matter what else you've done, because our mission is to support female founders. Mm-hmm. And while our programming is in cohort style, that's not the only support that we provide. And at the end of the day, we want to see all female founders be successful. We want to see every valid business idea get funded. It's so much harder for women to get funding. it's not, the needle isn't moving as fast as it should. And so we're really working on that. But as far as what a cohort would look like at Aviatra, we start with Explore, and that's an ideation session. And that's for somebody who has, some people just have the germ of an idea. Some people have been in business a couple of years, but maybe they haven't really put a good business plan in place. They haven't done some of the basics. So they come through, make sure that they can validate that idea, make sure that they can monetize the idea. We don't want expensive hobbies out there. We don't want anyone quitting a day job, for an expensive hobby. And we make sure that those ideas are really validated. And then our launch accelerator is more of a traditional accelerator type program, although we do not take equity. So that program is for women who have been in business a couple years, probably have revenue, are a little bit farther along, and are going to be actively seeking funding. So we really prep them to go access funding. That culminates in a pitch competition, which is less about winning the prize and more about the exposure that they get to the community.
That's awesome. So where are you kind of in your cycle right now? Do you have an active cohort now? Do you have one coming up?
So we just finished our launch 21, and we had flight night at the beginning of September. The organization just celebrated our 10th anniversary, although we actually are now on our 12th year because, that little pandemic got in the way of having a big celebration. It didn't sound really that much fun to have an 11th anniversary celebration. So we just had our big 10th anniversary. And then we will be starting cohorts back up in late winter. And so we are in the intake process now. So if you are a female founder out there and you have any type of an idea, or if you're already in business, get in touch with us now so that we can start to get to know you, and then we can put you in the right cohort where you really belong. That's
awesome. And as far as the requirements, so obviously, female led, but a lot of the members that come to Centrifuge, they're not solopreneurs. They have a partner. Is it a cap table requirement where 51% of the cap table needs to be female?
Yes.
Okay. And as you look back over the last decade, how many of them were solopreneurs versus a team that came in?
I would say close to 90% are solo.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, yeah, it's really something that resonates with me because my wife and I founded our company, 50-50 on the cap table. And I love what you're doing because, as we were going along our journey, it seemed like because I had the CEO title that it was somehow my company, right? Which was so far from the truth. My wife was the president of the company until the day we were acquired in 2020. And I love that you're trying to change that. And my hat's off to you.
We've had a few partnerships where it's the female founder and her male partner, and the guy.
How does that usually work out?
Well, I think the guy has a lot of fun in the cohort, and we're very welcoming. We're happy to help him too, because he's a part of her success, and so we've had that happen, and it's been a lot of fun.
Awesome. Is there anything else you want to share before we move on to this amazing group that we have on stage today?
Really just, talking to the entrepreneurs out there, the female founders, connect with us because we will help you in whatever it is that you need. Don't feel that you have to apply for a cohort necessarily. If that's something that we think can help you, we'll let you know. But really, we have a vast network that we have developed over the last almost 12 years now. And we can connect you with what you need. We'll connect you with other accelerators. Just don't be shy about making connections, and I would say that's true of everybody else on the stage. Make the connections, get to know people. Everybody has something to offer.
Awesome. Nancy, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Up next, so this is actually a friend of mine, I'd like to say, because we share office space here in Union Hall.
Yes, we do.
So we've got Josie Dalton, who is the program manager of Flywheel. I know enough to be dangerous, but can you just kind of indulge us a little bit and tell us what you have going on there at Flywheel these days?
Yeah. So at Flywheel, we are an accelerator and capacity building organization for startups with a social or environmental mission built into their core. So Flywheel actually originated in consulting for nonprofits, and then around 2015-16, when the startup ecosystem here really crystallized, Union Hall started to pop a little bit, we moved into this space and started doing accelerators for social enterprise companies. We've seen a few different trends in those areas, things like workforce development, education, things around sustainability, and over time we've actually narrowed our focus down to the themes of our 2 programs. So in the fall we run SustainableCincy, in the spring we run Elevate Equity. So SustainableCincy is the program that we are about to wrap up. We have 4 awesome companies. Please come see them pitch on Tuesday, November 9th at MadTree. But we really believe that businesses that are purpose-built for impact can be investable regardless of whether they are considered traditionally venture backable. So over the past couple years of running these programs, we really saw firsthand the gap in access to capital for founders and communities who traditionally haven't had it, which spurred a lot of our work to bring the community together around impact investing, alternative financing structures for startups, creating more opportunities for marginalized founders, and all those different kinds of things. So we believe that the identity of the founder can be just as impactful as the direct work of their startup. And we are just really excited to be here, to be part of the community, to see Union Hall coming back to life a little bit. Yeah.
No, it's great. And this idea of kind of non-traditional capital, because, part of the challenge that you all have is you have to attract and retain cohort members. And a good way to do that is a bunch of capital, right? And, a lot of the measurement in the ecosystem to date is how much capital has been raised, and you're approaching it differently with these different types of funding mechanisms. How has that kind of impacted your kind of pipeline of founders, and do they find that a little bit more welcoming than just taking convertible debt or some other sort of?
Oh my gosh, it's been great. Our biggest focus when researching and implementing these different financing structures is whether or not it's founder friendly, right? So the model that we use in our accelerator is revenue-based financing. It's not secured against any of the founder's assets. We don't take equity. We just take a return to a predetermined multiple from a percentage of gross revenue every quarter. So if the founder has a down quarter, we experience that down quarter with them. If a founder is super successful, we get to share in that success. Ultimately, we are not out to, cash out on their business. We're not depending on their exit. It's a way for them to, have some working capital and build their business while they're with us, and hopefully de-risk those types of investments for other members of the community who see those impact investments, those alternative financing methods, and say, hey, that's an interesting way that I could support startups if I'm not necessarily an accredited angel investor or something like that.
Nice. So you win when the founders win.
Totally.
Yeah, so it's kind of that skin in the game that really makes you seem like a team member as opposed to just somebody writing a check.
Yeah.
So, obviously you've got a lot of differentiators there. What, do you kind of look for as an impactful founder or startup to join your cohort?
I'm so glad you asked. We get that a lot, right? Especially when people throw around the term social enterprise, like what is that? Is that a tax status? Is that a certain class of company? Oh, is that like B Corps? It's really undefined and sort of decentralized, but what we look for, our sort of sniff test, right, is the impact integral to the company, right? Like, would it be the same if you took away that missional lens? And 2, is it revenue generating, right? Is it a business? Is it going to be financially sustainable in some way? So those are really our 2 gut checks, but I think that companies can be, in fact, impactful in a ton of different ways, right? Through, like I said, through the direct service of the work or through the role model and leadership potential of the founder.
Awesome. So Josie, anything else that you want to relay at this point before we move on to this amazing group that's sitting to your left? And by the way, we are going to have a discussion a little bit later on where we all get to talk at the same time, because I'm sure everybody's tired of hearing me. But any parting comments at this time?
Well, like Nancy said, if you're interested at all in social impact, sustainability, equity, any of those topics, please feel free to reach out if you're interested in entrepreneurship. If you just want to get connected, the community here is amazing, so we'd love to help. And please join us on the 9th at MadTree to see our latest cohort.
Awesome. Josie, thank you. So up next, and sorry, I'm going to be a little tougher on you as a graduate of your program. We have Luke Dooley, who is the president of Ocean Programs, which is different than Ocean Accelerator. We'll get into that here in a minute. But as I sit here as a member or graduate, I guess, of your first class, which was, what was it, 8 years ago now?
Yeah.
Tell me about how you shook things up back then, kind of coming into this market with this faith-based component, and how has that gone for you? I mean, how is Ocean recognized at this point when you came in to basically disrupt everything that was going on at the moment?
Sure. Well, I think what the folks that had the vision for Ocean all those years ago saw was a gap nationally and the opportunity to think about founder care holistically alongside really great startup acumen. I think 8 years later, the narrative's a little different. I think a lot of people have come around. I think there's a broader conversation around these things, but if we all remember back to sort of those early 2010s, there was like hustle was glorified in a really unhealthy way, and there was a lot of stuff going on that I think was that you know, these guys, Tim Brunk, Tim Metzner, Chad Reynolds, some folks that were kind of at the core founding layer, the visionaries behind the program so many years ago, that they were kind of looking at something that they had experienced in their personal lives and frankly in their faith journeys. And then they were looking at accelerator models nationally and other things and kind of going, this feels a little incongruent. And might there be a better way is a dangerous question to ask, especially if you're entrepreneurial in nature. And you kind of can't let that go sometimes. And I think that was kind of the story. And so what seemed like a little bit of a crazy experiment, I think 8 years ago, has you know, I'm very fortunate. I've been part of Ocean for about 4.5 years. So I've been here about a little more than half sort of the time of the organizational lifespan. And it's been really fun to watch that grow and flourish and sort of grow in terms of national recognition and relationships and different partnerships, and to continue to kind of keep home and roots here in this StartupCincy ecosystem that we love and care for, even as we've sort of been able to continue to influence and grow and partner outside of Cincinnati. Calling Cincinnati home is really important, and I don't think there's too many cities that can put a diverse group of people like this on stage, not just in the diversity that we can see here, but the diversity of the types of program offers. And I think that's a really cool thing, and we're really proud to be a part of that in this city. So yeah, we have this differentiator, and I think that sticks out a little bit nationally, this idea of Ocean, and this is a place where you can come and you can sort of, as a person of purpose and of character and value and faith, you can come and grow your business, and right alongside that say, how do I also do this in a sustainable way? How do I do this in a way that it doesn't wreck my life, wreck my family, wreck my relationships? You know, and I think one of the things that makes Ocean unique and that space is that we're not exclusive for people of our faith. We are pretty unabashed about how we approach programming, but we welcome folks of all types. And so, you know, I could sit here and tell stories of alumni of other faiths and of no faiths and folks that are just intrigued by this idea of building a business of purpose. A lot of the stuff, frankly, that Josie just kind of shared, right? And we say, hey, there's some values in Christian scripture and biblical wisdom that we just think applies to your life and your leadership, and, you know, come hang out and come be a part of that. And one of my favorite things that we talk about at Ocean is like, there's a Bible verse, Matthew 16:26. It says, what good would it do for a man to gain the whole world and lose his soul? And we say, no good. That would do no good, right? What good would it do you to build the next tech unicorn and everyone hate you? No good. Or to lose your relationship with your spouse, or for your kids not to like you. What good to build the next great chain of retail shops that is cool and trendy and on brand, but everyone secretly thinks you're kind of a jerk in your town? Like, come on, that's no good. So there's a better way, and we just keep kind of plowing forward in that other mentality.
Awesome. And I appreciate you kind of diving into the breakdown of the class, because I think it maybe is a misconception, you know, as I sit here with my own startup, which was StreamSpot, which streamed to churches and synagogues, that you had to be, you know, in the faith kind of sector. But in that same class with me was Tarek Camille from Circle, which I don't think there's a faith component there. Sorry, Tarek, if I'm wrong about that.
In him as a person, but not in his company, right? Yeah.
Okay, so that's a whole different conversation. But no, I can say, having gone through the program, that the way that you incorporated the faith components was around those types of stories that you could utilize to kind of keep that work-life balance when, you know, as we all know, being a founder is a very chaotic journey that I honestly, I think there's something wrong with us because you have to work all the time. And I personally found it quite rewarding. But
well, they call it an illness for a reason, right? Like I got the sickness and I can't let it go. And so people that have it serially like have it especially bad. But yeah, all that kind of stuff that's like the ethos and the heart behind Ocean, from the beginning. And that's the through line is like, let's care about these people and these folks that we call founders, right? Because so much in entrepreneurship, so much of our identity can become consumed by the business. We entrepreneurs really run the risk of becoming isolated. Isolation, we believe, leads to identity loss. Identity loss leads to all kinds of troubles. And that's why we see these graphs and these charts and these stats in Inc. or Forbes or wherever. And it's like the entrepreneurial population over indexes on things like suicide and anxiety and depression and divorce and all these social ills. Because of those things. And so those are real conversations, and we want to have those, right? And so at Ocean, everything that we do is packaged around community. So we want to provide really great business acumen. We want to provide really great kind of like biblical wisdom and rootedness there. And then we want to package all that around community and allow people to kind of flourish in that context of being in relationship with others.
Awesome. So real quick, if you can, give us the broad strokes of the kind of the bullet points of the program and where are you at presently? Do you have an active class or when are you going to be opening applications? Just kind of tell us where you're at.
Yeah, sure thing. So I'll hit it really fast. So first I think just a key understanding about Ocean. A lot of folks really associate Ocean with high-tech accelerator, and it's true. We do that, and we've done that for a long time. But Ocean serves this wider array of entrepreneurs. We have a whole other side of our coin that we call the Genesis program and our online community and all this stuff. So we work with small business owners and bakers and barbershops and service business and all kinds of folks throughout that program, and we run that Genesis program sort of internationally. And then, on the high-tech side, that's been a really fun journey over 7 years. We are in the process next week of turning on the application for Ocean Class 8. That will run in 2022. Once again, continuing our partnership with 11 Tribes Capital out of Chicago, which provides the pre-seed investment into the 7 to 10 companies that we'll bring on board for what is looking to be about a 14-week program. It's new in that it's a hybrid program now, so we're doing it mostly online. Over 14 weeks, most of those will be delivered digitally, and then we'll kind of do like 3 retreats together. So last year we did Cincinnati, Boulder, Colorado, and then kind of Columbus, Cincinnati again at the end. So we're going to do something similar in 22, and we're excited to figure out who Class 8 is going to be.
Awesome. Hey, Luke, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Moving right along, what can you say about that outfit except that it's awesome? I had no idea you were in the Masters.
I guess
that's great.
I'm a Masters. I got my green jacket here. I just got off Augusta National or something, I guess.
I knew you were a good golfer. But no, we have Rowan Hume here, who's from Generator. And if you can, kind of give the audience a bit of a history lesson, because I know there's some ties to the brandery and some other hooks there. Kind of what is Generator and where did it kind of originate from?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Generator started actually in Milwaukee and Madison, Wisconsin in 2012. An accelerator that's really focused on the Midwest broadly as kind of its foundational thesis. In 2018, Generator actually took over operations of what the brandery was. And so Jeff Bay, managing director here, and formerly Jess Mavis, ran that program all the way up until batch 11, which our operational contract ended in 2021 with the brandery. So Generator always had kind of the aspirations of having independent generator programs specific to Cincinnati. So what we've run here since 2018 is our G-Beta program, which is a free 7-week accelerator. And we also now run a studio accelerator model. So that's a 16-week program, venture creation studio where we're creating 5 companies from scratch. So we split ways with the brandery in itself, and now just are operating under the Generator name.
That's awesome. So the studio concept, you're recruiting at the founder level without an idea or a concept, right?
Yeah, that's the general idea. We really are almost headhunting or purging former successful entrepreneurs or founders that have maybe gone corporate and now are looking to get back into the startup world. People straight out of undergraduate or graduate degrees that have some domain expertise, that are really looking to find kind of a supportive environment to flesh out a concept and potentially get some investment and build that initial product. But what we've done at Generator is we have a lot of ideas internally ourselves as well, and so whether there's synergy between the concepts that our team or our founders have been stewing on for quite a while, and bringing in individuals that have some alignment with some of the things that we're interested in, that we see as potential successful businesses. It's really a matchmaking process and a double opt-in, but the process to get founders in and seek out the best individuals is a bit of a tedious one, but over the 16 weeks, it's really just about building fast, and let's learn while we can, and hopefully try to get a product out there that can get some early capital.
No, it's great. And what's interesting about, and I think a lot of the other organizations would chime in on, a lot of cohorts come in with an idea, and obviously by the time demo day comes around, it's dramatically different. So I'm curious how much the idea is really important versus the founders that you recruit.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think a phrase that has really stuck with me since my early days at Generator is betting on the jockey, not the horse. Obviously, the concept or the business will change, the market will change, but really like the scrappiness and the determination of a founder is really what kind of drives the success. And so, coming to this program, the first 4 weeks actually, so we're in week 6 right now of the studio. The first 4 weeks are solely focused on kind of taking a concept off the shelf and exploring it and vetting it as quickly as you can just for that 1 week. Week 2, week 3, week 4, you're looking at a different concept. And then at the end of that phase, it's like, let's take a look back, what worked, how can we validate even further, and let's pick one and run with it for the next 12 weeks.
Yeah, no, I think it's all great. And you mentioned you're halfway through the current studio, and forgive me if you said this already, but will there be a demo day or a showcase so we can see what they've put together?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in week 6 right now. So this portion of the program is very mentorship driven. Actually, early 2022 is when we're slotting for a demo day. So we do a lot of the investor work right early into the new year, and then February 2nd, I believe, is our premiere night slotted at this point.
Awesome, and that'll be probably online, or?
Yeah, remains to be seen. It's tough to plan too far ahead, just based on the environment of the world right now. But I think hybrid is something that we will retain no matter what, even if we do go back fully into in-person. We're running hybrid programming right now, and obviously there's been some values extracted from that were a little like blessings in disguise in a way. But looking forward, obviously, to get back in person with everybody and have fun with a larger group in a great space.
Awesome, Rowan. Any parting words before we move on to the next organization?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just kind of want to acknowledge everybody and give kudos. I'm fairly new to the Cincy ecosystem. I moved just into Over the Rhine about 4 months ago, and again, kind of like what Luke said, to have this many accelerators in such density and proximity was something that I did not expect and has really impressed me so far. So, happy to be in such a great environment.
Yep, we're going to need a bigger stage if we do this again next year, but appreciate you, pal. Thank you. So up next is kind of a new face to the group, I spoke to Larry Kavanaugh prior to this, also a founder, CEO of Navistone, which is your startup. But you're here today to talk about entrepreneurial organization, or is it entrepreneurs organization?
Entrepreneurs organization, yeah.
Which is a multinational organization and features an accelerator component. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I'm fairly old to the Cincinnati ecosystem, and I'm not called a new face very often. So that's very cool. So I myself have been an entrepreneur for more than 21 years, and joined an organization called Entrepreneurs Organization back in 2007. It's it itself is it's an organization that is really helps businesses that are already established, pretty far along. The average member of EO has a business that's maybe somewhere between $5 million and $50 million in revenue. But about 10 years ago, EO started a program that I'm here to talk about today that is called Accelerator, but it's actually a very different kind of program than what everyone else up here has been talking about. And by the way, even though I'm old to the entrepreneurial community here, there's some really cool stuff going on that I had no idea of. And there's a lot of people I want to talk to afterwards. My wife just started a business and would love to connect the two of you. Anyway, so EO's Accelerator is really trying to solve a different problem than the groups up here. We work with businesses that have been established, that have been around for a couple of years. The Accelerator program does, our Accelerator program does, and it's designed to help them sort of get beyond that, solopreneur, 2-person, 3-person company, and really break through and become, a 10-person, 20-person company. And so it's really based on, the program is based on 3 components, and it's really designed to help companies scale up. So it's after they've sort of got something already established. The program has really sort of 3 components to it. One is an educational component. We use the book, aptly named Scaling Up by Vern Harnish, as sort of like the textbook of what we go through. We have a quarterly learning day. The next one is actually going to be here on Monday, November 1st. A quarterly learning day where we actually have the host of Scaling Up. There's a podcast called Scaling Up. We have the host, Bill Gallagher, fly in here and give an all-day session on one of the 4 components of Scaling Up. Scaling Up's components, they're sort of their pillars of what businesses need: cash, execution, strategy, and people. The one that we have next Monday is on strategy. Second component to the accelerator program, to our accelerator program, is peer-to-peer learning. So you're actually with a group of 4 to 5 other companies that are in the same stage, and you meet monthly in what we call accountability groups. And you sort of set out for the group, hey, here's what my goals are for the month. And then you have to come back and report on how you did against those. You also get to present, hey, I'm having this challenge. What do you guys think? And there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning that goes on because other people have had some of those same kind of challenges. Then the third component is coaching. So our accountability groups are led by an EO member who has themselves sort of successfully scaled up a business. And so that EO member not only is there to provide like their own input, but also to connect you with, Cincinnati has 60 members in the Entrepreneurs Organization, but also to connect you with resources that might, where someone might have know how to deal with a particular challenge that a accelerator member has. So we just started the program. Our very first group started August 30th. We've got 8 members now. Half of them are female, which is awesome. Another group to connect you with, connect Aviatra with. We're looking forward to growing this program. It's in 60 countries nationally. It's got a history of actually increasing the chances that a business will scale up 4-fold.
Awesome. So it's kind of a unique offering versus what we've heard to this point because there is some proven revenue. I know some of the other organizations have that as a requirement as well, but you're really trying to get to that, that Series A where they go from the 2 to the 10 to the 100.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, in fact, most of them are not venture-backed or even aspire to be venture-backed. It can be, businesses that just want to grow traditionally, organically, and, get to that 10, 20, 50 people, 10, 20, $50 million revenue level.
Nice. And any specific industries that you're looking at? Are you looking for SaaS? You're looking for fintech? Or does it not matter?
No, it really doesn't matter. We've got really things all over the place inside our existing group. Really, any idea that you can get beyond $1 million in revenue is an idea that we would love to help you with.
Awesome. So Larry, real quick, any parting information you want to give before we move on?
No more information I want to give, but I've learned so much over here. I can't wait to hear what's down here.
I love the transition. Yeah, you want to come over here and take this seat? Fantastic. So now excited. So we have Raquel Robinson from Lightship Foundation, and you guys have had a little bit of press lately, to put it kind of modestly. Can you kind of give us a little bit of background, because there's ties into Hillman Accelerator and quite a few other kind of household names around centrifuges in the startup ecosystem. Kind of what do you have going on there? And by all means, please brag about the recent headlines, which are awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Raquel Robinson from Lightship Foundation. And so if you're familiar with the Hillman Accelerator, it was founded in 2017 by Candace Matthews-Brackeen. And so although that our team and our programming looks a little different now, our mission remains the same: to help remarkable founders grow and scale their businesses. And so we are now Lightship. And so Lightship has 2 houses. I'm on the foundation side, but we do have Lightship Capital, which is our fund and our investment team. Lightship Foundation is composed of 3 programming primary that we do. Is so our Lightship Accelerator, and that's 2-week sprints, and applications are actually open right now, and they close on October 31st. And then we have our Lightship Bootcamp, and that is a residential accelerator where we take founders in for 2 days, and we're basically just with them going through strategy, and it's led by our senior partner, Brian Brackeen. And then we also have Twitch Pitch, and you guys can actually watch Twitch Pitch tomorrow night at 7 o'clock on Twitch. We're the first venture capitalist on Twitch, and so that's super exciting. But founders are able to pitch our entire investment team live, and it's a $25,000 investment from our team. And then finally, we do have Workflow Wednesdays that we still do to build community. And so Workflow Wednesday, if you're familiar with Hillman, we used to do Hillman Fridays. Now they're Workflow Wednesdays, and we have them every other Wednesday here, actually at Union Hall. And so, yeah.
Awesome. So that's a lot going on.
Yeah.
If I can, let's dissect it just a little bit. So you mentioned that there's different programs that have different cadence as far as how long they go. Can you tell us a little bit about how folks could get linked up to those specific programs and kind of who you're looking for, if there's any sort of particular segment or type of founder?
Yeah, absolutely. So our primary focuses are health tech, sustainability, artificial intelligence, CPG, and e-commerce, and that's just because those are our team's expertise. We try to take in companies that we think that we can help the best. We have a value creation team, so you'll have access to our creative director, our communications director, our tech director, and we're able to help all these companies with their 6-week sprints and develop goals to reach those within the time that they're in the program. Bootcamp is rolling applications all year. We typically have a boot camp every month, and so right now those boot camps are in Cincinnati, they're in Cleveland, they're in Tulsa, and Detroit. Twitch Pitch is also rolling applications. We're on our final season this year, but Twitch Pitch applications will be open next year, and we're super excited because we're going to offer an even bigger prize next year for Twitch Pitch, so that's also an opportunity for founders.
Nice, nice. And on the boot camp, and keep me honest here, is that the most relevant to kind of what we're talking about as far as an accelerator? Or, I mean, and again, correct me, because I make a lot of mistakes. Which one would you say is kind of the best fit for a founder coming in to kind of get the block and tackle business acumen, and then kind of end in that, call it a demo day or you know, whatever?
Yeah. So bootcamp is typically for founders who are more early stage. They do have some traction, but maybe you're just trying to get to that new level. Maybe you're pivoting. You need a little bit of help with strategy. So those are early stage founders, but our accelerator are, you know, they have proof of concept in the market, and so that starts at a $250,000 investment on the accelerator side.
Whoa.
Yeah, and so we have a program right now for Cincinnati and Tulsa available.
That's amazing. So $250,000. They have to have some established revenue, but and the program on that side for that particular one, what's the duration, and does it capitalize in like a demo day? How can we tune in and actually watch these members?
Yeah. So like I said, we're currently in our application period for the accelerator. So applications close the 31st, and so traditionally, I think a lot of accelerators, we don't require you to relocate like typical accelerators. We have 2 6-week sprints, and we operate in a hybrid model, and so those sprints can be done really throughout the year. The demo day that we'll have next year for Cincinnati and Tulsa will be, I believe, in March. And you know, like you said, everything's kind of up in the air right now, so hopefully we'll have it in person in March. But that's coming in as well.
And you'll consolidate cohort members from both Tulsa and Cincinnati into that?
Yeah, we'll probably have 2 separate ones, one in Cincinnati and one in Tulsa. But we're really excited. I don't think we've had a demo day since probably 2018 because of like COVID and stuff, so we're really excited.
Yeah, I think we're all super excited to see that. Any other parting words before we get to our last organization?
Yeah, like you did mention, we did have some huge news that we're super excited about. So we do have a headquarters that is coming to the Cincinnati Innovation District. We received $12 million from the University of Cincinnati, Jobs for Ohio, to create this space. It's 21 East McMillan, and so it'll be a place for creators and entrepreneurs and designers to come and just fellowship and work on their next business and their next idea. And so in addition with that building, we do have the Bolter House, and the Bolter House is a historical Frank Lloyd Wright building, and so we'll be able to have like our innovators and residents there to come and work on your next plan and have a 90-day residency to work with our team and then also our corporate partners as well. So we're super excited about it.
These are amazing headlines. Congratulations. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And last but certainly not least, we're going to move on to Kara Willis of Socap Accelerate. So, you know, before we get into kind of the larger group discussion, I've heard a lot here about the different kind of methods, the types of organizations and founders that we're looking for. Can you give us the broad strokes of what you got going on there at Socap and kind of fill us in on?
Yeah, definitely. So Socap Accelerate is a health innovation accelerator, and we are located in Northern Kentucky. Northern Kentucky University and St. Elizabeth's Healthcare came together with this idea to really figure out a way to build business in Northern Kentucky. And they thought, like, hey, why don't we make an accelerator, and then we can encourage these accelerator companies and founders to relocate to Northern Kentucky, because we think it's awesome and we really want to bring the momentum from Cincinnati over to Northern Kentucky.
Awesome. And so talk about your cadence. You know, how many do you typically have in a cohort or a class? Where are you right now? Do you have one that's active? And if not, you know, when are applications opening for the next one?
Yes, so we right now have a cohort in session. We have 7 companies this time around. We were actually founded in late 2019, so like right before the pandemic hit, and we really had to pivot from an in-person setup to a more virtual, and then move to hybrid style. So we started off with the 5 companies in our first cohort and moved to 6 companies in our second cohort. Now we're in cohort 3 and we have 7 companies.
That's awesome. And like Josie and Flywheel was talking about, kind of alternative capital, you guys have coined a phrase called social capital. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So Socap was created on the idea of social capital. So Socap is actually short for social capital, and then Accelerate, because we have a really fast program. We have a 6-week program, and that really just includes social capital, which you can think of that as pro bono work. So we've reached out to a lot of organizations around Cincinnati and Northern Kentucky, whether that's legal firms, accounting firms, marketing experts, to really bring all of this information to our founders for free. So we don't take any equity from our companies, and we don't offer any investment, but we do offer lots and lots of social capital.
Nice, nice. And throughout this program, as they kind of grow as organizations, does it all kind of come together in some sort of a demo day or some sort of demonstration that the audience can tune into and experience?
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to be wrapping up cohort 3 in a couple of weeks, and we're going to have our demo day on November 18th. In hybrid style event, we will have our founders in person at our offices in Northern Kentucky on Pike Street, and then have a virtual audience there as well.
Very cool. And obviously of the tie-in to NKU, are you looking for a particular type of founder, segment, student, otherwise?
Yeah, so although we are connected with Northern Kentucky University, we do not only accept students. We actually look for more established founders. Although we have found that those 2 sectors can collide. We do actually have 2 companies in our cohort now that were funneled from NKU and actually are still students at NKU. They went through NKU's incubator program and their entrepreneurship program there, and then were recommended to us from our connections at NKU. But typically we're looking for, we say pre-series A, but we haven't really stuck to that. We've seen that taking a wide range of companies from earlier stage to later stage really has shown a good sense of camaraderie and mentorship in our cohorts. So we were thinking early on we wanted earlier stage companies where we've seen that, okay, we'll take some earlier stage companies that we might have to pour a little bit more into, and some later stage companies that kind of know they have going on, and then letting these companies kind of have a natural synergy within the cohort. So although we don't look for a specific series you might be in, we really focus on founders. We're founder focused. We really want that gritty founder who, I think someone said before, it's not all about the idea all the time. It's about the founder and their grit and their drive to really want to change the world. And, health innovation, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find that next big thing that's going to affect us regionally, locally, globally, nationally. We really want to bring that next health innovation idea that's gonna, cure cancer or, be that next big thing.
It's awesome. And it's such a good segue into kind of the group discussion. But before we jump into that, is there anything else that you want to end with at this point to find out more about Socap?
Yeah, I'm going to speak directly to the camera. If you have a health innovation company or an idea that you're kind of pondering on, please feel free to reach out. We have cohorts every spring and every fall, and they're 6-week programs, so very quick. So feel free to apply or to reach out to me or our executive director, Rico Grant, and we will be happy to chat.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. And thank all you guys for giving us insight into each organization. We have a little bit of time left, and I thought, what better way to kind of engage the audience than get all of us together talking about a variety of different topics, all of which I have no plan for. But, just based off of what we were discussing here today, what I love about Centrifuge and I love about the accelerators that are here on stage is we interact with founders and entrepreneurs before they're known, before they're out in the press. And you really get, to go back to what Kara was saying, the grit of it, because a lot of times these founders have just left a comfy corporate job or a place of comfort to do this madness that we all refer to as startup. And what a lot of people don't talk about is it's hard. It's not 4 o'clock happy hours and nap pods and foosball. It's 24 hours a day from the day that you get on, that you found the company till its eventual end. So, I think my question for the group is, since you're dealing with founders that often pivot midway through your program, what have you seen has made kind of the successful founder that goes on to make those headlines that we all read about? And how do you kind of look for that and embrace that so that you can get them to that next level and advance them on their career? And if you answer, just please grab a microphone.
I think that willingness to change and pivot is a really big part of it. To have a founder who's not so married to their idea or their own expertise or expectations or whatever, and is sort of well-adjusted enough to recognize that with new information, new validation, they might have to move in a different direction and can do that gracefully, I think that's a sign that they're going to be successful long-term, whether it's in that business or their next one after that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. It's what we've found across our accelerator program, but really from knowing like a lot of entrepreneurs over the years, it's openness not only to pivoting for sure, but like coachability. Like that when someone is, you seek out advice from others, and that if the advice is not what you want to hear, it's not like, okay, I'm not saying you have to take their advice, but it's sort of like, I see some people who just push it away entirely. Even if you don't like the advice, there's probably something in there, some nugget in there that you can get and use, and it's really that openness to like explore, that curiosity around what else is out there that I think is also a big success factor.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that comes down, I think, probably for all of us, even to the selection process of like who's going to come into our accelerators. Like, are they coachable? Is this person going to show up and listen? Are they willing? Or are they bullheaded? They don't want to learn. They're set in their ways. And kind of that classic entrepreneurial line of, right, like, are you in love with the problem or your solution, right? Because it works one way and it doesn't work the other, right? I think about like one of our alums, Renji Bajoy, like you're talking about headlines and glitz and glamour, like, man, this guy's like, he's had a big year, right? Like Forbes 30 under 30, broke all kinds of crowdfunding, ECF campaign records on WeFunder, raised all this money in like 13 days, like kind of a rocket ship with Immersed, VR, workplace stuff, Facebook, Oculus. When he came through Ocean, it was a drone technology that was going to look at high school football practices and help coaches coach their teams better, right? It's like totally different program, right? Or totally different business. But, in Renji, you had a lot of those qualities. I heard all you guys saying, like you had grit, you had belief in himself, you had like determination, you had coachability, you had like just a great cultural or personal awareness of who he was and his skill set and confidence and belief and the ability to pivot. So I think it's a huge deal.
I would say it's just super important to be a risk taker. Calculated risks, but take the risks, and don't be afraid of minor failures. because you're going to have more failures along the way than you'll have successes. But those failures lead to learning, lead to changing, learn to move to this pivot that we all have seen in the people that are successful.
Well said. Any other comments about the types of founders that you guys have seen success in? And I see a ton of founders here at Centrifuge that I have the honor to work with. And the ones that I know will end up, hopefully, in your cohorts are the ones that are committed and aren't going to, keep that side job just to, keep that level of comfort. It's that willing to go to that discomfort often, like in my case, a decade to get to hopefully the comfort at the end, knowing that the odds are astronomical that you won't. I think that's something that we are trained to look for and hopefully, can amplify together in this ecosystem.
Yeah, I think being a program who was kind of founded with the idea that we would be in person and really being all in the room together and really getting that synergy, we found that we were really, really nervous about going completely virtual. And it was like, okay, we're in this new world, in a pandemic, and how do we still have an awesome program and bring all of these resources to these founders without being in the same room as them? And what we found is it's all about really the founder and their commitment to the program. It's really about, them showing up, being attentive, asking questions, and asking for help. And I think with our program being so short, what we do in our first week is really sit down with them and ask them, like, realistically, what would you like to get done in 6 weeks? What can we help you with? And where can we really show in 6 weeks that we've taken you from A to B or A to C or A to D? Or, we really want them to know what they need help with and be able to articulate that back to us. And I think that's really the importance of even having a virtual program, because you want to be on top of everything, because so many things can get lost between the cracks.
Yep. It's well said. Last kind of question for the group in the time we have here. I think all of us in common, we want to see the founders that we work with win, and we are in the background as we should be. Like yesterday, just seeing some of the founders that I've been working with have the confidence to get up on stage and talk when they've never done it. Or tomorrow in the the FinTech Frontier pitch competition, there are founders that didn't have a pitch deck 3 weeks ago. So I guess I'll put it back on you guys. Why do you do what you do? And I have my own kids, but often I feel like, I'm almost watching my own kids, excel in sports or something with these founders that I work with. And I'm just curious, as the common thread that ties us all together, what keeps you guys doing what you're doing?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quick. For us at Ocean, our belief is that healthy entrepreneurs launch strong businesses, and those will lead to flourishing communities. And so we're playing a long game of cultural care and of cultural renewal, and saying, man, we need better workplaces, we need healthier workplaces, we need employers who love and care for their neighborhoods and their industries and their employees well. And so we want to get as upstream as possible and equip as many founders as possible, whether those are small businesses, whether those are the high-tech enterprises that are going to employ people, and equip them with great business acumen, with that wisdom, with that community, with that rootedness in their identity somewhere other than just their business, with the belief that that kind of person will launch a strong business, and that will lead to a flourishing city and a flourishing neighborhood and a flourishing community. And I always say, like, man, we want more of all that. Healthier founders, stronger businesses, more flourishing communities. So that's what keeps us in the game. That's what gets us started every morning. Like, all right, let's keep working with these people. And like I said, we do love them. We love them, and we want to care for those individuals. I think that's the key, is keeping the focus on that person.
Yeah, Luke, I think the community aspect is really huge for Generator as well. Obviously, starting in maybe not the most glamorous of cities or I guess locations. It's not Silicon Valley, it's not Boston or New York, but it's really Midwest focused. And so trying to retain the talent that's just as great as anywhere else to the the regions that we were starting, and then attract that attention that isn't in our region, but to focus it on the areas that we do have founders and entrepreneurs in our communities. But I think, selfishly, the reason I do it is oftentimes it's just a really good learning experience. Like working with these founders, they're the experts in their industries and their domains. They know how to innovate there, and like getting involved with Generator and being able to work with founders so closely, it's like a mini MBA in a way, where like I just have learned so many things that I had no exposure to at any other point in my life. So that's what I got.
It's great, great.
So from the more global perspective, for us, it's getting funding in the hands of female and minority founders. We can't have women owning half the businesses in the country and getting a fraction of the funding. So that's from a global perspective, that's what motivates us. But on the day-to-day, it's the individual and seeing that person be successful, and then that feels successful to us. And I wouldn't trade getting up every morning and helping another woman do what she does, self-actualize, change her family, change her community, and it's an honor, a humbling honor to be a part of that woman's journey.
So well said.
Yeah, I mean, going off of what you just said, less than 2% of venture capital goes to women and minorities. And so we're just trying to level the playing field and close the wealth gap for people who traditionally have not had access to capital, resources, and programming and funding. And so I think that programs like the accelerators, so we had a company called Care Mobile, and so they're mobile dentistry. We partnered them with Ford and Delta Dental, and we're able to provide some vans for minority dentists to take those vans and go out into these underserved communities who don't have access to dental care, which is over 60 million communities in the U.S. And so I think just projects like that and programming that we're able to offer is what drives our entire team. We actually were just talking about this. We had a retreat last week, and we are on the same page about the goal and the why, and we're super happy to be involved in projects that impact the community.
Josie? That's up to you, if you can be quick.
I can be quick.
All right.
I'd say what gets us out of bed every day is very similar. It's access to capital. It's helping make founders into the strongest entrepreneurs they can be. And for me personally, it's an opportunity to touch a lot of different areas of social impact. I'm really personally passionate about sustainability, like workforce equity, education, I'll do a little bit of everything, and that's a privilege that I get in this role. So it's really fun to work with those entrepreneurs who are just stupid passionate about what they are doing.
Well, guys, I'm sorry, by all means.
Just even hearing Raquel bring up Care Mobile, they went through our cohort as well, and what really brings me passion and pleasure is the ecosystem we have here. We're really able to even send people to Aviatra, and Aviatra sends people to us, and we've really been able to build this ecosystem between these accelerators and startups that really has really exceeded my expectations, and I think is going to go really far in helping these founders grow.
I love it. To end there, we're all on the same team here, and please keep doing what you're doing. I love the answers to that. So for everybody tuning in, to get more information about all of our great guests and their organizations, go to StartupCincy.com. We have links to their sites, which will have information about their cohorts, applications, etc. So up next, stick around. We have Founder Therapy, which I feel like I just had here. So we're definitely looking forward to that. But first, this session was sponsored by Main Street Ventures. We want to go ahead and get a look at what they have going on here. So here's a great video from our sponsors, Main Street Ventures.
Main Street Ventures is working to become the community-funded initiative that makes entrepreneurship possible for everyone in Greater Cincinnati by supporting entrepreneurs with what they need when they need it: capital, connections, and education. We look to support all good ideas and founders, but with a particular focus on women and minority entrepreneurs who have been historically underrepresented in the startup community. Our funding programs support local entrepreneurs with equity-free funding in the form of grants, rather than traditional investments.
Queen City Certified is the nation's leading employer certification and cohort-based leadership program for intersectional workplace equity. We'll be using the Main Street Ventures grant to actually develop a product and a tech enablement that will allow us to do some prescriptive analytics, to really use the unique data of companies who are striving to do better to solve their unique needs for their employees.
Our purpose is really our team, and so I'm really excited for the grant to be able to right away. And we added 2 new positions, which is really cool, but then it really sets the stage to be able to employ, but more importantly, to pour into additional team members in the future. And so that means the world to me.
The Main Street Ventures grant we're going to use for our equipment. It will allow us to have the brick and mortar, and this kind of opens up another avenue of us being able to reach different customers.
We are Main Street Ventures, empowering the next generation of entrepreneurs.
All right, welcome. Here we are to the next session called Founder Therapy. And you might say, what on earth is that? And the good news is we have no idea. So here we go. Let's give it a shot. So this is a group of entrepreneurs that have gotten together. We've spent quite a bit of time together, but in all honesty, this is the first time the 5 of us have been together in person. And so you say, okay, well, why are you guys here? Let's talk a little bit about that. Let's talk a little bit about why founders might get together. Not talking about mentors, now we're talking about peer-to-peer. So before we get started, let's just go ahead and do a quick round of introductions, including who you are, a little bit about your background, your organization, and your connection to the ecosystem.
Hi, I'm Sean McCosh. I'm from Cincinnati, husband, father of 3. I am one of the partners at Differential, which is a digital product agency here in Cincinnati, as well as managing partner of the Apollos Project, which is a company that helps create innovative technology for churches.
My name is Kirsten Moorfield. I am a co-founder of Cloverleaf. We are a startup that launched out of Cincinnati about 3 years ago this month. Actually, we launched our commercial product. We've raised angel capital, venture capital, and really our product automates coaching. We do automated coaching to everyone inside of an organization. And I'm also a mom and a wife and all those good things too.
Nick Jackson, motivational speaker and spiritual entrepreneur. I run a company called Nick Jackson Speaks, and I direct the Speak Love movement. My company connects diversity and inclusion and mental wellness.
Got my own. Mike Hillenmeyer, dad of 3, husband as well. Been in startups most of my life. Currently with Coterie, we are revolutionizing commercial insurance. A really fun place to be. Tim Messner, who's not here, is also he is a founder there. I was an early employee. My specialty is product, and just happy to be here with everybody.
Yeah, and as Mike says, we really do owe a lot of credit to Tim Messner. Tim was really the brains behind this. Couldn't be with us today, but really his idea was, how do we create what he called entrepreneurs for impact? And that's what this group is. So the question that we really need to get to as we're talking about connecting as founders is, what is it about being an entrepreneur that makes a group like this necessary? Asked differently, like, what are the challenges that you've experienced on your own journey that are really challenging, really difficult to go through alone?
Well, first of all, I'll just say, when we say we're in a group, we get together every Thursday morning on Zoom and have through the entire pandemic and spend a good hour and a half being each other's therapists. And the reason why we need that is because high anxiety, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, you've got a lot of responsibilities as a founder, and it's just really emotionally difficult. And there's also like practical things that we run up against that we can talk through with each other, whether that's people things or like more like tactical business things.
My short answer, I don't know how people don't have a group like this who are in entrepreneurship. I feel like entrepreneurship is a super lonely place, can be a super lonely place. As leaders, you're going through a lot of things that most people don't understand. Anything from how to hire to how to fire to how to build a company at a slow pace or at a high volume pace. So I think just having people around you who either have been through it or are going through it makes you feel less crazy, would be my answer.
Yeah, I would say, too, as entrepreneurs and founders, we have other responsibilities. We all have our sort of day-to-day work responsibilities and our roles, but also there are leadership responsibilities, right? How to lead these teams, how to raise money, what does it look like to, put yourself on the line and go out and get credit and, put your home up as collateral. Those are pressures that a lot of people that are just employees may not feel. And so it's good to have people to speak with about, like, how did you handle that and how are you processing that? So I think there's a lot of emotional stuff as well as tactical, practical advice that we can get from asking each other questions.
And you also should not talk to your employees about it. So that's the isolation part.
No, Kirsten, push on that just a little bit. I mean, there's a reason that it's founders talking to founders rather than founders talking to employees. Talk a little bit more about that.
The responsibilities we carry can be too much of a chaotic fear factor for people who we're supposed to be steady for. Like, we want them to be able to do great work, and if you tell them you're putting your house on credit, they might wonder if they should look for a new job. It's stressful for us. We don't need to push that stress down.
I know for me, the therapy part that I really need is to just know that you guys are also struggling too. So a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur, you're only looking at yourself and your organization and your numbers. You don't recognize that other people are going through drama just like you. And to know you guys are all successful and you're willing to be transparent, it makes it special.
Talk a little bit about how this group got started. I think someone alluded to it. This is the first time we've actually been together in person. 5 of the 6 of us are here. I don't think we've ever had more than 3 people meet in person, and yet this is a group that's deeply connected. So how did it get started, and why on earth did you respond to an invitation to join a group of other entrepreneurs?
It started, so Tim Messner, we talked about, sent an email out and just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this group. It's entrepreneurial focused. You're all entrepreneurs that I know of, respect, would love to be part of it. Honestly, I looked at the list of people he sent it to and said, I would like to know those people. And I was right. And it was a really, really cool way to say, like, I just want to get more plugged into the community as a whole and to some specific people. So that's what got me here. And then, did it start during COVID? Like, I forget the actual time. Like, it was right at the beginning of COVID, and it was early on where we were Zoom only we're still Zoom only. So I don't know if we'll ever change that, but it's cool to see you all in person.
One other comment I'll make about that is the name of the group, or at least on the subject line on the email that we got, was Entrepreneurs for Impact. And so I think just knowing we're people with an entrepreneurial mindset, we might be willing to use our respective skills at some point to make change in the world, to do something. I'm not even knowing what that was yet, or is yet, really, to some extent. But we might be able to step out at some point and do something together. And this was a group of people that had the capability to do that. So that's pretty exciting.
And for me, I really don't know how it got started. I remember you introduced it to me, Brett, and I heard it was 7 in the morning, and my first response was, heck no, right? But
I think it was stronger than that, actually.
But I'm so glad that I did, because like the thing that's so special is that there's so many butt kickers in this group. Like, there's so many people that are really good at what they do that it makes it just like, I can't wait to speak to y'all again. And how you like get through your problems and parent. I mean, you've shared pictures of your kids and they wave at us and stuff. I don't have any kids. So it's a family. That's why I needed it.
The group is, for those who don't know, incredibly committed. And what I mean by that is you join lots of groups. You have lots of networking kinds of things. And yet this is a group that literally probably has a 98% show rate, calls in from vacations, like doesn't miss. Like, it's the FOMO if you're not going to be a group. How come? Why do you call in from vacations? Why does it become so important? Or ask slightly differently, like, what are the benefits that you're getting out of this group specifically? What would be an example?
I'd say friends. It's like genuine, real friendship. Even though this is the first time we're together in person, it's like we know each other, we care about each other, there's commitment, there's trust. And I don't want to miss finding out an update about what Nick experienced or what, like, just what's going on with people. I don't want to miss it, even when I'm on vacation.
I know for me, this is one of the only groups that I'm in where somebody asks how I'm doing. You know, and I'm on stage a lot. So the expectation of me to, not only having my stuff together, but knowing exactly what to say and when to say it, and then my public image, because so much of me is on stage, people know who I am. And so to be able to be a part of a family that says, hey, how are you, is something that's really special for me.
You know, I think we actually, I just thought of this just now, but we actually have a lot of cliffhangers too, right? Like every week we've got these big topics that come up and somebody's got a big pitch or they're dealing with, a customer issue or employee issue or something like that. And we bare our souls around those things. And a lot of times there'll be some accountability, like, what are you going to do about it? And we get to find out the next week, right? So that keeps us coming back too.
I don't know who in the betting pool had 14 minutes into me crying on stage, but it's you won. I love it because there's for sure, maybe this is just me, maybe a lot of entrepreneurs, tons of moments of self-doubt of just like, I don't know if I can do that thing. And I feel like this is a group where you can be truly vulnerable to say, here's how I'm feeling, here's what I'm feeling. And there's no judgment. There's no, it's just like a great community to build into you to say, here's who you really are, here's who we see that you are, and why I don't miss, to answer your question, is because I feel like if I do miss, I've missed a handful of times, like my week's worse. I don't have as much gas to go, I don't have enough things to get out there, so I am better because of this group. 14 minutes in and crying.
Talk a little bit more about content. So right now we just hear group. We hear, okay, there's a few issues, but talk about an issue that has been particularly interesting or important to you, or a topic where you're like, oh man, I'm not sure I want to go there, but maybe with this group I will.
I'd be more than happy to talk about this. So during the 10-year of my time in this group, DE&I went from being like a negative term where people really didn't want in this kind of leadership, was something that was negative, to being super popular. Like I went from being in situations where people were negating and just disgusted, and then all of a sudden they wouldn't stop calling my phone. And then not only on top of that, it went back to being something that's a negative term. And so to have the closeness of the group to be able to kind of ride the storm with you is something that's so important, especially being a person of color in a group of a lot of other folks that aren't of this certain hue. Knowing, just being real, just knowing that I'm accepted here and you're willing to listen and to ride with me on this journey means the world.
You know, one of the things that comes up a lot is pretty simple, right? It's kind of like what I do with my kids around the dinner table, like highs and lows, basically, right? Like, what's going well? What's not going well? What are you struggling with? Those are things that come up, I would say, almost every week before we get into, if we actually have content that we're going through. We'll get derailed by that, and that might take the whole, hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half, but it is really great time for therapy. And again, it can be very practical things, like help me solve this business problem or get connected with someone. And there's some amazing stories about how that's been helpful to folks. But sometimes it's just cathartic to be like, look, I got to act as if I have it all together all the time around my employees, so everyone's got confidence and vision and all that stuff. But, startups and young companies are tough. Like, there are a lot of things we're doing for the first time, and we can kind of lean into each other for help in those areas.
We do sometimes have like planned content, and like we are in the middle of something that's planned content right now, and last week we got to it about 45 minutes in, which is like more than halfway through for us. We meet for an hour 15. And what derails us is we're just like, hey, how's it going? What's happening? And I recently had something where I was like, oh, I'm just kind of thinking about whatever. And Tim was like, interesting, tell me more about that. And I was like, I did not realize there was more to that. I suddenly realized I'm incredibly emotionally uncomfortable, and then now Brett Smith is asking me more questions about it. And so like friends who just see each other and like you think you're talking about something unimportant, and they dig in with questions. They don't let you just be like, and how are you today? Move on and gloss over it. Other stuff is like, oh shoot, we need to hire somebody in marketing, and I don't know. Oh, somebody knows somebody and they connect, and then we end up hiring that person, right? Other things are like, we're trying to figure out how to do better content for our board. Like, how do you do a pre-read more effectively, right? And like get actual like feedback from each other on that. Or, I mean, like the list is endless. It's like, what is stressing you? What kept you up last night? That's what we're going to talk about. And true friends that like care, care, and ask you digging, prying questions about it, which is very helpful.
So that's awesome, and that's really helpful if you have this group already. But if you don't have this group and you're like, hey, I want something like that, or asked differently, I hear the word, and Nick just cringed the first time we used it, vulnerability. But I've heard it 3 or 4 times already while sitting here. How did you get to a place that you felt comfortable enough to bare your soul, right? If you always keep your guard up, you're always this great, successful entrepreneur. How and why did this group allow you to sort of drop that guard a little? How did that occur?
So for me, it wasn't as much about being vulnerable than it was about.
But you hated the word.
Oh, I did. Yeah. Let me tell you. But I'm used to being vulnerable and using vulnerability to make my life safe. I'm not used to being vulnerable and stepping into this area of vulnerability, right, to be connected with love. That's something, and I'm kind of pointing at you, Brett. This is something that you do really, really well. And I think a lot of people, they would love to be involved in a group like this where they can be vulnerable and be loved at the same time. And just because I'm being vulnerable, that doesn't mean I'm right. And you have no problem to let me know when I'm wrong. You feel what I'm saying? And like we need friends like that. Thank you for that.
I think it's the commitment, like the continued commitment that you like people show up so consistently, so that builds a level of trust, which allows us to know that we can talk about things together. I think also space for silence. Actually, Mike is the bomb at space for silence. When he's like leading the conversation, you'll wait like 5 minutes of silence and he'll smile and say, that was the best. And I think like, you know, like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like hurried to give short answers. Like we truly give each other space and ask digging questions to go deeper. And we all do it together. Like nobody's holding back. So that would also undermine trust.
Yeah, another thing is I think it became clear pretty early on that this wasn't just a group that was meeting, you know, once a week for an hour and 15 minutes. People would follow up with texts, you know, after that big meeting that you said you had, like, how did that go? How can I help you? You know, there's a lot of interaction, both in group texts and individually, outside of just that meeting time. And that's not always true, right? I think that was a little bit unique about this group and super helpful. It helped us all be like, oh, these people really care, and they're following through and consistent.
Yeah, I think you guys nailed it. I think the only thing I mean, the question was how do you replicate this, which I think we would, one, you can't replicate these people because they're amazing. If you try to steal my people, we'll have a whole different conversation. I think just showing up. Like, it is wild to me. I think we've all said it. Like, this group shows up week after week after week. And when you do that and you can actually see the changes, and like there was times at Coterie as we grew, and I think Brett would just see me like, you look really, really like just flat out exhausted this week. Are you okay? And like, no, I'm not, right? Like, and so like, I think it's a moment because you are seeing someone frequently enough that you can tell differences, but also not like every day where it's that like, you know, boil a frog type difference. I think there's an amount where you can see the changes week over week, where you can ask the questions. You know, I don't know. It'd actually be great to rewind and say, like, at what point did this go from we're here because we enjoy the content, enjoy each other, to like, we're here because we're friends, we want to build into each other. And it didn't happen meeting 1 or 2 or 3 probably. So I don't know when that happens, but it took some time and some cycles to get to where we are.
Yeah, in terms of replicating, it did start with content. Like, it did start more structured, so that helped get the momentum going. Another thing I'll say is, like, we don't let each other get away with just complaining, which, like, we ask the questions that force you to go deeper than that, and because that's so consistent now in the group, like, I don't know, I've been a part of other like networking groups or whatever where people can just kind of stay really surfacey by talking about just negative things and then moving on. Whereas this group will say, but what about you? What role did you play in that? How are you emotionally processing that?
We've been through a lot. We've been through fundraisers. We've been through big deals won or lost, or big deals that we thought we were going to get that were lost. We've been through COVID. We've been through parents that were sick, like you name it. And that's just over the last 18 months. But one of the things that's unique about this group is the role of faith. And so it's really bringing together entrepreneurship and faith. So I wonder if you don't mind sharing, like what's the role of faith and why does faith affect sort of the functioning of this group? Dude, you said spiritual entrepreneur.
Right.
Like, let's go.
No, I was not going to go first on this, but for me, I was preaching in a church, and then I moved from preaching in a church to now preaching in businesses. And so I had to change the way I speak. I can't say the words God or Jesus, faith, and prayer. These words are now negative words. And so to be with a group of people where we could talk and I can hear how you guys do it. So it's not just me on stage, it's also you guys in your everyday conversations. As a faith-based person, how do you speak in a way that's welcoming and accepting to all? And this is something that I definitely had to learn. Next thing, very quick, right? It is such a blessing to know that I could tell a friend of mine, like, hey, I need some prayer on this, and you actually do it. This is something Mike does well. So I will be in a situation, and he'll send me a text. We all do this, but I'm specifically pointing this towards you. You'll send me a text, and you'll let me know that not only are you praying for me, you're praying for this specific issue that I asked for help with, and, like, that's special. That's special.
Can I reverse moderate this? Brett.
I'm the moderator.
How would you answer this question, Brett?
So if I thought about it, right, one of the things that faith does, and our Christian faith specifically, is it brings us together in a worldview. There's a certain way that we look at the world that might affect the way that we might raise money, the way that we might try and get customers, the things that we might do. And I think it's that uniting sort of foundation that allows us to also cut through a lot of the friendship building, right? You already start with a common worldview. You can get to, right, there's almost a thought of like, you can get to deep trust quicker. Usually trust takes either a long time, right, or lots of interactions. And this was like, no, you can already start pretty far down the line and recognize that the person you're talking to is coming from sort of a same worldview, which isn't always common there. But thanks for the reverse moderation.
I would echo that. I mean, I think it's really important to have more than one thing in common, right? In this case, it's entrepreneurship and faith, and that allows us to grow trust pretty quickly. A couple of groups that I've been in that have been really durable, that have lasted, years, not weeks or months. That's been true. I'm in another one it's called Hunting Bourbon and Leadership, and we're all interested in hunting bourbon and leadership, right? Some are work-related, some are not, but we all have a lot in common, and that leads to easier dynamics around communication. The other thing is, like, we have a lot of problems to solve, and there's biblical wisdom that we can draw upon, and we may not have it all memorized ourselves, but this group is an uncanny way to be like, oh, remember this principle? I think that applies to your exact situation. It reveals that, and it's like, oh, aha. Then you have like a real interesting, specific takeaway after the meetings, after we talk about it.
I think it also raises some issues, some of which are very secular and make perfect sense, like a servant leadership, but others that maybe don't, like a word like humility isn't a word you typically associate with entrepreneurs. And so it also gives you maybe not just a common language, not just common wisdom, but uncommon wisdom that maybe doesn't always go hand in hand with what we might think about entrepreneurship. And so it actually raises novel ideas and novel ways to deal with some of the exact challenges that you're confronting.
One last thing I'll add to that is that if God is good and if God loves us, that covers so many other issues and like is honestly super not normal to think about. Like, even for people of faith, we forget that and go back into like, I've got to figure this out, right? And we can remind each other of that. I feel like that's one of the most important things about this group is like we ground each other in healthy truth.
Finally, if you're looking at others and you're saying, hey, again, that's cool for your group, but I'm just thinking of starting a group, or I'm thinking of getting together. I hear some of the stuff you say. I think like, man, I might really need that. What advice might you offer to someone about how would you go about the odds of improving success of building a group? What encouragement, what advice might you give them?
Commitment up front, like just communicate it. Like, hey, I'm starting a group, you need to show up every week, and getting people to opt into that. Don't let people just get away with complaining, and like trust, like make sure that trust is safe inside the group.
I do think there's some amount of content. In our case, it's faith-based content. It could be any content, right? I think there's an amount of, Kirsten talked about how we use content to go deeper, to establish trust. I think that is for sure true. But having some content to at least lean on, talk through. I had something else, but the clock's ticking down at me. It makes me nervous.
I'll be real quick because I know we got a minute left. Commitment in comedy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but be committed. Make sure you show up to what you want. Make sure you let people know what you want, and make it fun and funny. If it's not fun and funny, why would anyone want to do it?
And I think just being honest about a time that will actually work too. We do 7 a.m. Thursdays. Most of us don't plan meetings at that time so we can actually get there. It's not always easy to get up, but after the meeting, I always say, oh, I'm so glad I did that.
Yeah, and I think the overall encouragement would be like, hey, I know this isn't normal. You say founder in therapy, you're like, oh, man, get out of here. I'm not listening to this. Quite the opposite. I think our experiences it has been truly transformational in terms of how we approach our work, how we approach entrepreneurship, and how we approach relations. So I think our encouragement would be, I don't know how you find it, I don't know where you find it, but go find it.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. And where the heck were you for the last decade? Because I needed more therapy than I could get my hands on. But what a great concept around founder therapy. We've had an amazing day today, and the best news is we're just getting started. So back again tomorrow, we're gonna have a day full of content, but we're gonna cap it off with the FinTech Frontier $75,000 pitch competition. That's not chump change, folks. And just a reminder, if you've missed any of this amazing production, we are live on YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook, and all of those recordings are available immediately afterwards. You know, Startup Week doesn't just happen. We have an amazing support group of sponsors, and one of which is here with us today, Jennifer Glanville, who is it's a title that I have to have one day, brewery manager. So another type of founder therapy right there. For the Boston Beer Company, or Sam Adams, is joining us today to talk about their support of Cincy Startup Week. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer.
Thank you so much. Wow. What a week so far. So I'm so proud to be here representing Samuel Adams and our Samuel Adams Bring the American Dream program. When Jim Cook, who's from Cincinnati, our founder and brewer, started Samuel Adams 37 years ago, there were two things as an entrepreneur in small business he needed: access to capital and to coaching, that nuts and bolts business advice. So in 2008, we launched the Samuel Adams Bring the American Dream program, where we provide coaching and capital and opportunities for networking and markets. So where we've been able to loan over $65 million in the last 13 years to 3,200 businesses around the country. We're in 39 states, and we're so proud that we've been able to coach and mentor over 12,000 entrepreneurs. Capital is incredibly important. As we all know, you need to have capital to start your business, but that coaching advice is really priceless. And so we're proud to be here supporting Cincy Startup Week. Not only is this our backyard here, we have a brewery here, we have a wonderful tap room here, but the community here, and the 20 years, I've been a brewer for Sam Adams for 20 years, the community here has, to watch it evolve, this vibrant food and beverage community has been so exciting for me personally and as our company. So we're proud to be here today. We're proud to sponsor this. We're sponsoring a happy hour today at 4:30 at our tap room, so I encourage you to please come down and join us. You're putting a lot of time in this week, and we know many business owners have just an idea for a business. Some want to evolve their business to the next level, and you can't get started if you don't show up to things like this. You've taken the time. So, kudos to all of you for doing that. We're incredibly busy now, and there's so much going on. And, we can keep inspiring passionate people like you out there to grow these communities, create these opportunities for jobs. We've created or retained almost 10,000 jobs around the country. That's more needed now than ever, so let's keep that going. I will say, we all know the last almost 2 years has been really incredibly challenging, but to me, the inspiration, I love being a brewer, don't get me wrong, making beer's awesome. The work I've done on Brewing the American Dream as a coach and supporting this program far outweighs anything I've ever done as a brewer. It is so amazing to be able to see the resilience that these passionate entrepreneurs have. We've heard from them today. We're going to hear from them the rest of the week. We're going to hear from our founder, Jim Cook, who's going to present the keynote. So it's just, I can't say it enough. It's just so inspiring and amazing. So thank you so much for all of you for joining. Thank you for always being such a warm welcome here in Cincinnati. The energy here is just awesome. We look forward to supporting more small businesses. Look at brewingtheamericandream.com for any updates on resources available, as well as events that we'll be hosting here in 2022. So cheers.